Thank you, Speaker, and I rise today to speak to the Safe Food Victoria Bill 2026, legislation that marks a defining moment in how this state regulates our food safety, of course. And this bill is not merely an administrative reform, it's a commitment to the health and safety of every Victorian who sits down to a meal, and I love to sit down to a meal regularly, and in particular when I'm staying down here in the parliamentary sitting week. There's not many nights that I'm not sat down to a meal in Melbourne. But also this is to every business that works hard to put safe food on Australian tables. And just on that, I want to just rattle off a few businesses in Melton that are fantastic cafes and fooderies. The Grey Matter Cafe, Vic's Bakery, Urban Punjabi, Max Hotel, Bix Bakery it was, Golden Fleece Hotel, Melton Country Club, Melton Bakery, Buddy's Bakery, Morgan's IGA, Train Station 1, Papa's Ocean Catch and Melton Entertainment Park. And they're just some of the fine locations in Melton that are good fooderies and provide safe food for their customers. And I do frequent many of those businesses, and also there's many, many more in Melton, and we're very lucky with the diversity that we have in regard to cafes, restaurants and, as I say, the diversity of that. Of course, the way we've regulated food safety in Victoria has been for too long been fragmented, duplicative and unnecessary complex. And of course, this bill, the introduction of this bill, changes all of that. And to understand why this legislation is necessary, we must be honest about the system that we're replacing. Victoria currently operates under 4 separate acts, administered by 2 responsible ministers and regulated by an array of bodies like the Department of Health, the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, the Dairy Food Safety Victoria, and of course Prime Safe, and no fewer than 79 local councils. And that is not a regulatory system designed for the modern era. It's a patchwork built up over decades, and quite some of that part of the patchwork have been very protective of their patch. Of course, each layer is added with the best of intentions, but as I say, some of them have become quite protective of their own patch. But that cumulative result being an architecture that is confusing for businesses, and it's inconsistent for our customers and inefficient for government. Of course, this bill begins to change that. It's the first stage of a 2-stage reform program and a key commitment under the government's economic growth statement to halve the number of Victorian regulators by 2030. The bill establishes Safe Food Victoria and, of course, a new consolidated statutory authority, and it will bring together Prime Safe and Dairy Food Safety Victoria, along with relevant departmental functions from the Department of Health, into a single, capable and coherent food safety regulator. Because the community and stakeholder engagement showed clearly that over 90% of stakeholders support the move to a single regulator. And that means that Prime Safe and Dairy Food Safety Victoria will be abolished. And in their place will stand one organisation with one mission, and that is to protect the health of Victorians, and that's the most important thing, by ensuring the food that they eat is safe to eat. And I think that's obviously a positive move forward, notwithstanding the standards here in this state are still very good right now, but we'll be improving that standard. Of course, no longer will we have the 2 organisations essentially doing the same thing across the both sectors. Of course, one authority, less duplication of regulating the safe production and transportation, manufacturing and delivery, monitoring of safety compliance, licensee support, technical support, enforcement, and working with the Minister on matters relating to the industry, the sector, and keeping, again, Victorians safe. The new authority will be governed by a board of between 5 and 7 members, led by a chair and a deputy chair, and appointed by the responsible minister. And it is the intention that the Minister for Agriculture will administer this Act, placing Safe Food Victoria firmly within the agricultural portfolio, where its paddock-to-plate mandate is best understood and best served. Safe Food Victoria will be led by a Chief Executive Officer and appointed by the board with the authority to build a strong and expert team. Staff, assets and property from existing regulators will transfer to the new entity. And something that I want to be clear about, I know that's a phrase those opposition don't really like to hear, but we do need to be clear about it. Staff will transfer on conditions no less favourable than those they currently hold. And again, that's about the protection of those workers. Of course, the expertise that has been built up over many years within both Dairy Food Safety Victoria and Prime Safe is an asset to this state, and we intend to preserve all that expertise. And there will be no loss of corporate knowledge, of course, and we will build on the incredible foundation that has been established over many, many years. And of course, this is a step in a direction of better transparency, retention of critical expertise, clear and consistent information with an overarching focus on health outcomes, and the health outcomes are safer food for Victorians and better health outcomes for Victorians. Acting Speaker, a consolidated regulator delivers benefits that reach far beyond the machinery of government. For businesses, it means a single point of contact and a one-stop shop rather than a maze of regulators with overlapping remits. And it means reduced compliance costs, less duplication, and a clearer regulatory environment in which to operate and to grow. And for consumers, it means stronger, more consistent food safety outcomes and a regulator that can take a true paddock-to-plate view of the risk. And that can manage incidents with greater speed and coordination, and that brings specialist capability together under one roof. And again, I referred earlier to the expertise from the two agencies that currently exist. And rather than just siloing that expertise across multiple agencies. New South Wales and Queensland and most comparable international jurisdictions have made very similar reforms, and obviously the outcomes in those other states and those other jurisdictions have been quite successful, and again the model that we're implementing is very similar to that. It lowers the cost regulation over time, and it improves incident response, as I referred to earlier, and it delivers better outcomes for both the industry and the public, and that's exactly what we want. And it's legislation that is quite genuine and extensive. There was extensive consultation over the past year. The government conducted more than 60 individual engagements with stakeholders and interest groups, and it's pleasing to see that so many stakeholders and interest groups and people that have an interest in production of food and delivery of food and the provision of food and meals and things like that were so engaged with the process and the consultation process. And those people that were involved were from either small producers, large processors, from local councils, public health bodies. So it's a cross-section of everyone that's involved in this particular area of food production and again delivery of food to the consumer and through restaurants, through supermarkets and through outlets that people buy and eat and purchase their food. So it's fantastic to see that engagement. And this was all culminated through Engage Victoria and through September and October of last year. Of course, overwhelmingly 91% of respondents expressed support for the reform, and that's great to see that people are on board with it and they think that it's a good thing moving in this direction, and that's an incredible result of over 91%. Of course, stakeholders told us clearly what they wanted in a new regulator: clear and consistent food safety information and a genuine one-stop shop for business. And again, that was clearly portrayed through those consultations. And of course, they want that ongoing specialist expertise that's been built up over the years to support their local councils and a regulator that will understand the balance between non-negotiable public health outcomes and practical industry engagement and embedded consultative committees to ensure industry voices are heard and keep an oversight of the changes for the future. This is an important bill that's been brought to the House. I'm pleased that the opposition are not opposing this bill, although I know that the lead speaker referred to the fact that they might put up some amendments in the upper house. But it is an important bill, and I commend the bill to the House.